Here is a subject I've been waiting to do for some time. It's this whole weak solipsism versus strong solipsism distinction, and the implications of such a suggested philosophical dichotomy. So firstly, weak solipsism. What is weak solipsism? Weak solipsism is said to be a form of solipsism in which the person believes that the universe and its contents are real, as opposed to being a product of mind, but that he is the only human with a consciousness. This is called weak solipsism because it is less extreme than true solipsism, that is, strong solipsism. That it's more or less extreme, I think, is a matter of perspective. And so, accordingly, and secondly thereof, strong solipsism, which is the lucid direct knowing that everything in sense perception is a manufactured product of the mind. That's so much more extreme than believing I'm the only human with a consciousness. So much more extreme. I'm not sure why there is this weak-strong distinction in the first place, as weak solipsism isn't really solipsism proper. Any true form of solipsism, in order to even be considered solipsism, would have to have foundations rooted in idealism. Having foundations rooted in materialism just doesn't gel with solipsism. Can weak solipsism represent an actual position? Are there people really out there that truly believe this? The belief that reality is physical, but that they are the only creature with a consciousness? I don't know. It doesn't seem to fly in my mind. Why would anyone allow for objectivity, but then also simultaneously coincide a belief that would be so diametrically opposed to realism? It's oxymoronic. If reality is indeed objectified, then it would be logically consistent to an objective template to understand that every living organism would have some varying degree of consciousness. And if not, then how not? What kind of explanation in scientific materiality would account for philosophical zombies? Just because sensory phenomena is illusory doesn't mean that any old fantasy an ego can dream up suddenly gains credibility. So how could such a fantastical possibility be accounted for realistically? It's an ideological amalgamation that stylistically is sort of reminiscent of something like Scientology, which, on a side note, represents an example of a trend that's quite annoying and really needs to be cast away forever into a pit of fire. When belief systems that are replete with outlandish, far-fetched fantasies try to anchor themselves into factuality by associating with aspects of the concrete, mundane reality. Get the hell out of here. Bullshit is bullshit. Bullshit doesn't gain additional credibility by associating itself with facts. It's still bullshit. But anyway, weak solipsism is the kind of idea that gives solipsism a bad rap. Much of the negative censure leveled at solipsism has to do with this hubristic concept. It's a thoroughly selfish idea that's completely centered around the ego, and critics blast it as arrogance, and rightfully so, as it's definitely a narcissistic, myopic, and very self-important concept. So this is why opponents of solipsism love weak solipsism, because it represents one of the few weaknesses in the hemisphere of solipsism, which is exactly why the moniker of weak solipsism is so aptly titled. But I say it is a weakness only in the hemisphere of solipsism because I don't really consider weak solipsism to be a part of the official canon of solipsism. It may have even been deliberately conceived of specifically to malign the position. A piece of troll ideology, if you will. And unfortunately, it has ended up becoming the most common perception of solipsism held by the layman. So weak solipsism is a blemish on an otherwise invincible ironclad philosophy. It has nothing to do with lucidity and everything to do with delusion. Mainly due to the fact that weak solipsism is purely an abstraction. It's just another belief system. Hence, the description of the position is explained as a belief that the universe is real, but that the belief holder is the only being with a consciousness. That's right. A belief. And nothing more. And to boot, the assumption of the identity of a being, huh? Well, that would be nice, if only there was any one actually existing out there as such. Not to mention there is no out there out there. Weak solipsism crops up only if one is still forming attachments to the content of dream phenomena. This means there is a lack of clear seeing, and an overabundance of abstractions and identifications. This is what delusion is, looking upon an illusion and then choosing different sections of it to grasp at or push away. Again, the problem here is misidentification, which, of course, is enabled by the blur of clarity. Pointing towards thoughts, or to a physical embodiment, is still externalism. The fact that you can prepare a big bowl of abstraction soup doesn't make it any more fundamental, or highlights it as the most real boiled down, only existing minimalistic identity. It's still a self-referencing inferential attribution. You are not the thoughts, you are aware of thoughts. You are not a manifestation, you are aware of manifestation. It's not a worldview, as you are not a view. It's not first-hand truth, as you are not a hand. And it's not a point of reference, as you are not a point. These are all the stuff of phenomenal content. So, to gain intimacy with the most fundamental, one need only discern that which provides all these phenomenal aspects context. It's intimacy with emptiness. But that's kind of hard to realize when one is constantly busy getting caught up or stuck on phenomena. The truth of the empty self is not a truth originating from phenomena. The true identity of the empty self is a truth of pure potentiality, always ever not existing outside of all phenomena. It's the realization of the truth at the center of real solipsism. And this brings us back to so-called strong solipsism, which really doesn't need this differentiation to contrast against weak solipsism. As strong solipsism is the only real kind of solipsism there is. There's no need to call it strong solipsism. It's just solipsism. Weak solipsism is an elaborate fraud. There is no weak solipsism. There is only solipsism. Solipsism.